So we had primary, alternates, contingencies, and emergencies right there. Plus, sending some poor dumb on foot as the runner was always an option as well.
All right, guys, we're talking about PACE plans today. So a PACE plan is a framework for planning alternative measures, talking about operations or different subjects ranging from communication to weapon systems, route planning, modes of transportation. So a lot of people pigeonhole themselves with this by only considering a PACE plan for their communications, but this is a framework for any real contingency plan. So for communication, when we were getting briefed before a mission, your primary, of course, would be your radio. Alternate could be hand and arm signals. Contingency could be whistles. Emergency could be, saying that poor lowly private to be a runner and get yelled at by E6s. But
Usually in Afghanistan, we had our Harris radios, our emitters. We had local cell phones. We had sat phones. So we had primary, alternates, contingencies, and emergencies right there. Plus, sending some poor dumb on foot as the runner was always an option as well.
there are always privates wherever you go. But that's not all PACE plan is for. So we're only highlighting this. This is a short subject, guys, but we're highlighting this so that you have a framework to be thinking of these contingencies. So example would be transportation, right? So in a post-event environment, your primary mode of transportation, normally could be your vehicle, but say the highways are blocked, damaged, destroyed, you wouldn't be able to use highways or normal roads. So your alternate form of transportation could, look like a off-road vehicle, four-wheeler, dirt bike. I never know what they're called, but like the Polaris Macho, like the
Like Gator.
the Gator, a little four-seater. If you have wildlife, or not wildlife, if you have like a farm ranch, you could rely on horses. You could rely riding on horseback. You could, at the end of the day,
Best form of transportation.
yeah. And then an emergency, your emergency line could be, just you hoofing on foot. All right, which you should be able to do anyways. You should be able to throw on a ruck and walk with you and your gear wherever you need to go.
And in all those, you need to have a keen understanding of land nav. So just to tie that in.
Oh,
because you need
for
to know
sure.
where you're going, what kind of obstacles you're going to run into. Because if you're just chugging along and you run into a cliff, you're going to have a bad time.
Oh.
I'm going to be laughing all the way to your funeral, but
Well, for sure, and even not something as dramatic as that, but skyline yourself on a ridge line or on a hill. So another example would be your weapon system. So your primary weapon system should be your rifle, right? Alternate being your handgun. If your rifle goes down and your handgun runs out of ammo, a contingency might be you and your buddies cross-loading ammunition, having additional weapon systems or being able to share ammunition. An emergency could be
hand to hand.
worst case scenario using any tools you have available to you or hand to hand, or it could look like you picking up a weapon system off a fallen enemy, right?
Worst case scenario, you pick up a rock off the ground.
Yeah, so we talked about land nav for communication and movement, talking about weapons familiarization for being able to shoot whatever you have available to you. Last example I can really think of is route planning. So patrolling, setting up a patrol base. Something you just do inherently is set up rally points in case you lose communication or you're attacked when you're not expecting it, and if you have just chaos happen, rally point is a place where everyone knows to meet. So your primary plan could be movement to this hill, but if you get attacked along the way, rally points,
And your comms go down.
right? So you have an alternate place to meet, contingency place, emergency, just go back the way you came, whatever.
Right.
So PACE plan is just a framework for setting up redundancies and contingencies so that you're not having to react or adapt to a situation. You already have a loose plan in place.
Right, and it's definitely essential that everyone within your unit, your group, whatever, what have you, it's essential that they know this PACE plan, because they need to have it memorized. That way, if the comms do go down, they're not like fumbling around, lost in the woods, lost in a city, whatever. They know where they're going. They have a map. All they have to do is pull up the map, being like, okay, we're supposed to be meeting at this place. Where do I need to go? What can I use to guide myself back to this location? And if they're not there, where's my next one? And so on and so forth, whether it's secondary, tertiary, whatever.
Right, 100%. All right, then application for PACE plan for medical care. We talked about in TC3, care under fire, improvising tourniquets. So your primary means of stopping life-threatening hemorrhaging should be utilizing a tourniquet. Yes. So utilizing a TC3 certified tourniquet. If you do not have that available, if you've spent all of your TC3 tourniquets, if one was damaged, if there are none available, then you will have to improvise. There's lots of ways to improvise a tourniquet. None of them work as well as, say, a CAT tourniquet or a soft T. So you're kind of melting your alternate, your contingency, your emergency care there, but the framework remains the same. So your primary should always be CAT tourniquet or soft T, but you need to be thinking in advance how you can adapt with what you have, how to improvise a tourniquet, or just plan to have secondary and tertiary tourniquets available in your kit. You have to plan these things ahead of time, because if you get caught without that plan in place, you have the potential of getting people killed.
Right. And one of the things you also need to keep in mind, especially with improvised tourniquets, they are not reliable. You're going to have to find a way that, especially when you wrench them down, you need to find a way of locking that into place. The main idea is to stop the bleeding. So you have to cut off that blood flow. And if you're wrenching something down and say you just take the stick and you tuck it under somebody's pants or in a slot, there's the chance that it could slip out and then the bleeding will start again. So you need to find a way to lock that thing down so that it does not release the pressure on it. And that's why we try to keep you away from improvised tourniquets. Definitely don't use a belt. A belt is one of the worst things. You see that in movies and all that stuff, but what you don't see is if somebody uses that in real life, that person is more likely to die because you're not going to get the amount of pressure that you need and sustain it.
Well, and something else. So obviously in the framework of TC3 care under fire, you're not really concerned with long-term care or long-term consequences of an improvised tourniquet, right? Your only job is to stop the bleeding. But with all that being said, if you improvise a tourniquet from, braided 550 cord or a rope, or something that is the width is thinner than a CAT tourniquet or a soft T tourniquet, then you're going to run into the problem of causing tissue damage and underlying damage just in, like we said earlier, you don't know what's going on in the anatomy underneath what you can't see. So if you use something thin like a rope or, what have you, insert here in your environment, then you have the potential of causing more damage.
In the TC3 lineup, we're going to be hitting tactical field care, tactical evacuation care, and after that we are going to bring you a special guest to talk about the Role 3, the hospital setting, because we as infantry got to see and train for everything up to the hospital setting. So we're going to bring in a special guest for you to talk about that. She's a provider, and she's actually one of the hosts for the Fur Coats and Stethoscopes podcast. So we at least got that treat for you. And thanks for hanging in there with us. I know this was a short episode, but there wasn't a lot there. This is just a framework episode, trying to get you guys to understand the.
It's important to understand the concept of a PACE plan, guys. We know this was a short episode, but we wanted to give you the framework, wanted to give you the concept so that you can apply this to other,
Absolutely.
to your operations.
So thanks for joining us today. This has been Hard Time Strong Men podcast, talking about PACE plans. Like, subscribe, share with your friends.
Stay safe and be better.
Bye, everybody.